Welcome back to the Prepared Mindset YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. When I started Prepared Mindset about 5 years ago, one of the core tenets that stuck out to me as being something that I wanted to focus on and be consistent with was addressing budgetary restrictions and access to quality gear, right? That was going to allow you to be capable, more accountable, sufficient, but it wasn't going to put you in a poor financial situation. I think one of the biggest misses we have in this community today is that we feel this need to keep up with the Joneses. And if that phrase eludes you, what that means is that we are constantly chasing the newer, better toy, right? So whether that's an optic, a laser, a flow-through suppressor versus the one we have that works perfectly fine now, a new rail, a new color scheme, new nylon gear, whatever have you, purely because we see marketing thrown at us in every direction, whether that's YouTube videos, Instagram, yes, even printed ads and things like magazines these days. And it's a miss, because what we do is we end up taking those financial resources we have that we could put into other avenues like training, like food storage, or even just taking care of our families, things like vacations, buying something nice for your wife or for your children, which are absolutely, I think, essential when we talk about quality of life and pursuant to the greater goals we have as being good men and providing for our families, or good women, even that provide for your families in that way. And what we end up doing instead is chasing, like I said, I have to go from an EOTech EXPS2 to the EXPS3 because I have to have that night vision setting, even though I don't have night vision, or I have to chase the newer, better optic because insert whatever influencer is going to tell me in a video, not directed at me, that what I have is poor level gear. And to be completely honest, this was something that bothered me when I got into this space. While I agree and disagree with Lucas Botkin on a lot of stuff, one of the things that really set me in a direction I didn't agree with was the insistence that you had to have the super quality, high quality even, optics and gear. If you weren't running an EOTech, you weren't running an Aimpoint, you weren't doing the right thing for yourself. That's not necessarily true. And I think as we've seen things shift over time, that's become a little bit more clear and we've had a little more options open up. So we're going to talk about today in this discussion is building a budget rifle. How affordable can we get while still having decent, reliable components that's going to make for a reliable fighting rifle without maybe leaning into some of the marketing, some of the spam, whatever may have you, that the community is telling you that you absolutely need. So let's talk about it. Okay, so to expound, back when I started watching GunTube videos, I want to say it was probably around 2015, 2016, something like that. Yes, we had people who were just coming onto the scene, making content, making videos, telling you, if you didn't have an EOTech, if you didn't have an Aimpoint, that you were buying unreliable technology, you were buying unreliable gear that was going to fail you, and it was a waste of money. And I really, at the time, I didn't necessarily agree with that. In hindsight, I do, but the conversation has changed. The conversation is now different. What I mean is that, yes, maybe 10 years ago, we really only had some small handful of options out on the market for reliable optics. We were really looking at Trijicon optics, whether that was the ACOG and the RMR. I don't even know if the MRO was out that long ago. You were looking at the Aimpoint series, the Comp M2s, the Comp M4, the T1, T2 series, the H2 series, right, which were all very much close to $1,000 optics before you got into mounts and all the other things, right? And then EOTech. And EOTech optics certainly, I think, fall maybe a little bit towards the lower end of the scale, but still brand new, were between $500, $600, $700, $800. Certainly depends what you're looking for. And for a lot of us, we couldn't justify that price. Now, certainly today, we fast forward, we have options. Yes, while however cringy it may be to support China, HoloSun coming on the market did force a lot of companies to reconsider what they were doing, reconsider options out there on the market, and evaluate what they're offering at the price point that they're offering it at, which only benefited us as consumers. So while those comments maybe 10 years ago rang true, I don't necessarily know that today they ring the same way. We have some options from companies like Vortex. You have new companies coming on the scene like Lead and Steel in the last couple of years, who I'm a very big fan of, creating optics like the PB3 and the LP1 that are new offerings to the space that can be just as reliable. And I think it's important to recognize that those offerings come in at a price point lower than some of the legacy brands. Now, certainly if you've had positive experiences in your own life, whether that's deployments and duty. I know some people deployed and have a negative opinion of EOTech because of some quality control issues years and years ago, and they'll never run EOTech again based off of their own experiences and their own opinions, and I have a lot of respect for that. Some people have only ever run and deployed with Aimpoint. It has served them well, and they will absolutely spend the money out of pocket to have something like that. Absolutely respect that. But let's talk about, when we build out a rifle, budgetary considerations and what might be something that you could look at as a fighting rifle. So this has been a lot of videos. This is my 11.5-inch build. I would consider this a mid-tier or upper mid-tier rifle build. And for a lot of people, you would look at something like this and say, this is the minimum. You shouldn't go cheaper than this in a lot of cases, because the quality of components are not, to them, a high enough standard. So walking through this, and we have a video already talking about this build, but a reliable handguard with a good lockup to the upper receiver. So this is the Geisley Mark 16 rail. Have a D-Ball A3 up here, a laser unit, which there's other laser units out there. We'll talk a little bit more about lasers in a minute. This is certainly a more legacy option. It still works. It still does the job. The illuminator is not great. There are other better offerings out there. Certainly, you know, an Arasaka body with an HRT light head, an RC2 suppressor, which there are cheaper suppressors out there. There are also more expensive suppressors, and some may say ones that function better with flow-through designs. You do have the Lead and Steel LP1 up here, Geisley airborne charging handle, which I am becoming a fan of. Certainly an upgraded bolt carrier group here from Bootleg, so I can adjust my gassing without having to take my handguard off and mess with my laser zero. The upper is a BCM, the barrel is a Roscoe Bloodline, but the lower here is just this is a Aero lower with mil-spec safety, no ambi controls here, and an ALG advanced combat trigger. So like I said, I would say, and a Law tactical folder here, which I honestly don't end up using very often, but I do like having it on the gun in case I wanted to. And a Fear cheek riser from Regular Defense because of the Canoe riser from Overbore Systems, because I do like a more heads up shooting position. Again, I would think that this is a mid-tier rifle based on some of these things. Certainly you can get full builds from companies like Knight's Armament that are going to be, I would think, that S-tier level that a lot of you guys are looking for. And then you can dress it up with whatever accoutrement that makes the most sense to you, whether that's an EOTech or a Leopold or an Aimpoint, whatever have you. But for a lot of people, when we start getting into how much this costs, this is too much. I can tell you, I already had the muzzle device for this upper. I already had the light. I can tell you the upper alone was $600, which some guys can't afford to spend, or can afford to only spend $600 on the whole gun. And while it's very easy to say, hey, just wait and save your money, get something real good, leaving that gap in your preparedness plan is a concerning one, especially if you don't have a handgun already. And the fighting carbine is a really, really strong recommendation over a handgun for defending your home. So if this is too much, let's talk about taking it down a step and seeing if we can't close that gap in the affordability scale. Okay, so this is a 10.5-inch build that I put together for my wife to shoot. And this is what started off as a COVID project, a spare parts upper receiver build. So the upper receiver itself is from Palmetto State Armory with an FN barrel that also came from Palmetto. If you guys have followed Palmetto for a couple of years, for a long time there, and I think they still may, they were using factory overrun FN barrels. So the barrels you might get from Palmetto, and a lot of people want to poo-poo on Palmetto State Armory for various quality control reasons, and maybe some poor experiences. In my experience, this has been pretty good. So an FN barrel, I picked up this very off-brand, most likely Chinese quad rail off of eBay for like $50 back when I was trying to make a build that looked like a Mark 18 that wasn't a Mark 18. I know. And then, so speaking, spare parts, so an M640 from Surefire, which is not a budget light, but certainly a little bit cheaper than what was on the 11.5-inch build, because I think the light head on that is like $300 plus $50 for the light body. The tail caps have gone up, and then pressure pads and things are like $150 if you're doing a dual pad. So this is I think $250 or $300 light. Another $50 to $75 for the tail cap. The pressure pad's like $50 because it's just your basic single Surefire pressure pad. So a little bit more affordable. And then I think this is a dead air chemo muzzle device. I think this was around $100, which is about $25 cheaper than Surefire, but obviously designed to run dead air, the Sandman S that I have for this gun. The lower receiver here is actually, what is this? This is a Palmetto lower receiver as well. So I had that backwards. Sorry, the upper receiver is from Anderson. Rip to Anderson, by the way. If you guys haven't been following the news, Anderson is now out of business, so you can't really get this stuff anymore. Another company that had some quality control issues people were concerned with. So lower receiver is a mil-spec, regular old lower from Palmetto State Armory. And I will say I was actually very, very upset that when I put this Anderson upper with this Palmetto lower, how good the lockup is upper to lower. This feels, just from holding it, like a much more expensive gun. So for those of you out there looking at some of these things, I'm not necessarily encouraging you to go buy from the cheapest brands you can find, but I am pointing out that sometimes you can get lucky, and that is completely it. It is luck and not much else, because for every one of these situations, we have an Anderson to Palmetto situation, made it up together, and it feels like a $1,500 gun. You have probably 1,000 that feel like a $300 gun. So don't take my word as gospel on that. Now, again, up here on the optics side, a little bit more expensive, because I think reliable optics are definitely something, as your sighting system, they're worth investing in and not cheaping out on. This is the EXPS2 from EOTech, and this is on this gun because my wife has a pretty awful astigmatism. And of course, when I bought my first EOTech, which is this one, she looked at me and said, "Oh, this is actually really clear. I really like this." She didn't like red dots. This was great. Of course it is. So then I had to look at, getting myself another one, whatever. It's on a Unity riser, which is a spare $100. You don't necessarily need a riser, but I like it for a heads up shooting position. One other call out here. This is totally mil-spec lower. Did make my own cheek riser for this because, again, trying to be a little bit more budget oriented, there is a cheek riser that Magpul makes. And if you use a chop saw or a hack saw, even if you put this in a vise and hand saw it, you can cut it in half and it will snap into this MOE stock that Magpul makes. And it's going to give you that 3/4 inch cheek rise that you would get with something like the GBRS cheek riser, like the Fear from Regular Defense. Is it going to look like you did it in your garage because you did? Yeah, it's going to look like that, but it's still going to function the same and give you that same heads up shooting experience that you're chasing. And also, as I'm looking through this, because my wife does not shoot this a lot, this is a spare gun. The battery in this has died, which, again, if you're looking at EOTechs and you know how EOTechs work, yeah, this is, let's see here. Oh, no, there it is. Okay. Yeah. Something I don't love about the EOTechs is they do not stay on, as I'm saying this out loud. I do like that about the lead and steel. So, but let's say, looking at all of this, this is still too expensive. This is probably every bit of a, if you bought the, the optic new, if you bought the light new, probably at least a $2,000 build. Does this run reliably? Yep. Haven't had any issues with this. The range sessions we've taken it out to. Would I have any problem handing this to somebody? No, I wouldn't. I think this is a fine build, albeit one that is a Franken gun and on very much the cheaper end of the spectrum. But what if this is still too much for you? Okay, so let's talk about this guy. If what we were just talking about was too cheap for you, I would say that this is probably as cheap as I ever recommend people going. And we're going to talk through this build. There's some very old school elements to this rifle that I think still lend themselves pretty well to today's environment and today's situations while saving you some money. I think it's important to note here that at some point we do reach a point of diminishing returns where we start being so budget conscious that it's a detriment to ourselves. So while you can make some very well-informed and very educated decisions that are going to help you save money in your overall goal of building a better rifle here, at some point you're rounding too many corners and you actually are hurting yourself. So this rifle, the story behind this is a rifle that I built for my father. He is still with us, by the way. They're just in the process of moving, so he didn't want a bunch of guns laying around the house. It's okay. He had wanted an AR, and my brother and I at the time wanted to build one for him. So we went with this very classic, like Mod Zero, early GWAT looking build. Now, why this is relevant, not necessarily for the clone, factor or anything like that, because this is certainly not clone correct, but because this kind of a rifle, 16-inch barrel with a pinned front sight post here, is something you can buy off the rack at your big box stores. And while a lot of people don't want to necessarily support big box, they would rather go to a local gun shop. Here's what I will say about this is if you buy from your local gun shop or from a big box store, you are saving yourself some money, because when you purchase online, if you have a serialized component like the lower receiver here, there is typically an FFL transfer fee involved, which can range anywhere from $25 if it's somebody doing it out of their house, up to, I've seen as much as $75 or $80 charged by local gun shops. And they do that because they want you to bring the business to them. They want to make the money selling you the rifle rather than just handling the legal side of it with the paperwork, taking a transfer from an internet retailer, which is one of their direct competitors. So, food for thought. Buy from a local gun shop, do the math. If that $80 they're going to charge you puts you, hey, it's $600 to buy this rifle online, and they want $700 in the shop, well, it's actually $600 plus an $80 transfer fee plus tax and shipping. Are you still saving money by going online versus in the store? If the math makes sense, take the path which makes the most common sense to you. I think I just said sense a whole lot in that. So what did we do here? So full disclosure, this is a full Palmetto upper receiver that I purchased during the holidays for my dad. You can find pretty good sales with Palmetto. And if you guys subscribe to their newsletter, I look at it pretty much every day just to see what's out there. I think this upper receiver costs somewhere around $150 on sale. Now, that was with no bolt carrier group and with no charging handle. So you will have to buy those. But for $100 or $150 with an FN barrel, which this one does have, I believe, hard to beat it. Now, are you limited? Yes. The front sight post here, it does limit your rail space. However, I will say when we look at typical clamp-on gas blocks, right? So something that you would see in one of the other two builds I showed you, those can be less reliable at times unless they're installed correctly. And a lot of times people are building those rifles themselves. They don't do that. The clamp or the front sight post here actually has two pins, there's holes drilled through the material of the barrel and pins that are driven through it. So that's why it's a pinned front sight post. And that thing is not going anywhere. And it would take a tremendous amount of force and impact and damage to move that. Additionally, you have a built-in backup sighting system, which when you talk about flip-up sights, good ones, not the plastic, M-buses that come from Magpul, that's easily another $100 per sight, $200. So we're talking savings here because we're talking about budget and affordability. The light here is the Gen 1 Streamlight HLX. And if a lot of you guys have followed the Streamlight and I'll say the evolution of lights and their availability out in the market, the HLX was pretty commonly referred to as best bang for your buck weapon light because it was about 1,000 lumens. It cost about $150, which is half of what Surefire would charge you. And it came with the tail cap and it came with the pressure pad here. So you can go ahead and you have out of the box for less than half at that point of what Surefire is going to charge you, a effective lighting solution. Now, I did upgrade the mounting system here to I think it's the LCS from Cloud Defensive, but there is rubber mounts that come with the pressure pad as well as an adhesive mount that comes from Streamlight. So it is truly an out-of-the-box solution. We did upgrade the quad rail. Certainly you can go with a cheaper quad rail. This is from Midwest Industries, I believe. Yep, Midwest Industries quad rail. This is just a drop-in. So you kind of need a D-ring tool to install this correctly, but I did it with a pair of drumsticks that I had laying around the house and some good old-fashioned initiative. and was able to pop out the old one, pop the new one in. $20 vertical grip. It's a real Knights. I got it off eBay a couple of years ago, back when this stuff was really accessible. I think somebody probably found a shipping container of them and was just getting rid of them, right? Again, 16-inch barrel, muzzle device. This came with a A2 bird cage, which is a extremely cheap and very effective solution for a muzzle device. A lot of people get really wrapped up in it. I need a 3-prong flash hider. I need a muzzle brake. On a 5.56 gun, the A2 bird cage, in my mind, for budget to performance ratio is king, because it does a fantastic job mitigating flash while costing about $5. And that's no lie, you guys. And those of you that know, you know. And if you even upgrade and get some of the ones from nicer companies like Griffin, you can get suppressors that will clamp on to a regular A2 style bird cage device. And then you can, down the line, if you have the money, run a suppressor on this. Now I did, jumping back to the light, it is on a TRX Arms light bar. That was just one of those things like, hey, it's Father's Day, here's an upgrade for the rifle. Not necessarily an essential, but given how far back your light sits because of the rail, having a light bar or even a clamp mount that goes, on the barrel so it sits below it, maybe not the worst idea in the world, although I think attaching to the rail is a safer solution. Jumping back here, yes, fixed rear sight. This is from UTG, and a lot of you guys are cringing. I can feel it. UTG, I think, is starting to improve the quality in a lot of their offerings. They're also based in Livonia here in Michigan, so I was happy to grab this. And why I went this route versus some other ones was A, the affordability, but B, it uses a large Torx head screw here to attach to the rail, unlike some other brands that choose that huge ugly knob, which can get in the way of actuating your charging handle back here. Speaking of charging handle, this is just a mil-spec charging handle. Nothing fancy there, didn't need to upgrade that, wanting to save money. Those again cost about 15 or 20 bucks, and they're extremely reliable. Up top here, this is the Vortex Strike Fire 2. And not the best optic choice. Now, on sale for about $100, and here's the reasons why I opted for this particular setup. One, it comes with the mount included, which is a big deal when you look at some of these optics that require an additional 100 to 150, sometimes even more for a mounting solution. This comes with it. Also, Vortex has a lifetime warranty, you guys. So yes, their red dots have some detractors. The refresh rate and battery life on some of the offerings, this included certainly, not the greatest. However, when you look at some of their like T2 clones, like the Crossfire 2, which I like, it's kind of a pain because the battery cap is built into the power selector knob. Building this for my father, who already he doesn't, interact with this kind of stuff all the time. I felt like this was a safer solution because you have a very dedicated battery compartment here and very easy plus and minus push button controls on the other side. So is it the best offering? Is it just as good as an Aimpoint, Pro or Comp M2, whatever? No, it really isn't. Does it offer some things that I think are really nice? Yeah, push button controls are nice. It's got the windage and elevation turret caps here with the little tool built in, so you don't need to go get a piece of spent brass. You just take it off, flip it over, make your adjustments, put it back. I think that's a good decision. Decent red dot, and that's where I would leave it. Decent. Yes, the lifetime warranty makes up for a whole hell of a lot. Would you be well served to upgrade this? Yeah, you definitely would, but this will get the job done and it will hold zero. It's just not going to be the duty optic that I think a lot of you guys might want, but certainly a very, very good starting optic for a fighting rifle. Again, completely mil-spec gun. We did get an HRF magwell for this. Do you need that? No. Again, Father's Day gift or Christmas gift or something was like, hey, we can get this for dad, we can throw it on there. Don't need the magwell. Everything else on here, including the trigger guard trigger, this is all mil-spec. We did opt for the B5 system stock. Certainly you can get cheaper stuff out there, which is what this started with, was a cheaper stock. And we just upgraded to the B5 pistol grip and stock as probably, again, Father's Day, birthday, Christmas, something like that, to help build this rifle up a little bit for him. And then lastly here we have the TRX Arms sling, because honestly for 50 bucks, kind of hard to do a lot better. I do prefer now, if you're looking for a more affordable sling, check out Huber Works out of Pennsylvania. That's Huber, Huber Works. They make their Spartan sling, which is about $15 cheaper, supporting a good small business, especially with people not loving T-Rex arms so much lately. But this runs. We didn't have any issues with this performance-wise. Full disclosure, actually, the bolt carrier in here came out of my original Smith & Wesson M&P Sport 2. So having some spare parts around did save some money. But this is a very affordable setup, given that the lower is actually an Anderson, and we put that together ourselves, and then the upper came from Palmetto. I think all in, this gun is just over $1,000 maybe. I'd have to do some math on it. It might not even be that if you're talking about sales prices. So, $150 for the light, $100 for the optic is $250, $300 for the upper, I say $200 for the lower probably with everything. So that's $500, $520 for if you include the foregrip here, $570 with the sling. Another $25. Let's call it $600. Yeah, it's about $600 actually, if you're okay running, a standard A2 grip, a standard A2 stock, and the handguard was about another $100, so maybe $700. You could knock that down. If you got a cheaper handguard from someplace else. I'm not going to recommend it, but you certainly could. The Magpul drop-in stuff is good enough in a lot of instances because it has M-LOK mounting slots, which will allow you to do things like a light bar, mount a pressure pad, mount a vertical grip. So for $700 or less, you can build a pretty decent budget fighting rifle. Now, again, this is not a conversation on just as good. I think it's a conversation on good enough to get the job done for now. Certainly, you guys, there's a lot to be said for the components, the parts, the pieces that you put into your build. If you're trying to be very purposeful or purpose-driven with your build, it's very easy to go into $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 with what you're trying to achieve, whether that's a GPR, an SPR, a regular old fighting rifle like what we just looked at. It's very easy to run away and spend a lot of money that you maybe don't need to spend unless you have dedicated reasons for that. Certainly, if you're with a law enforcement agency and you have to run Surefire lights because that's what your department dictates and your armorer just won't let you make any exceptions, there you go. There's also, Mod Light is also out there. Cloud Defensive is also out there. Yes, Streamlight is out there. HRT with their, I like their light heads. I don't really like their tail cap solution that they have, but it fits on an Arasaka body. You could build a full Arasaka light as well. Those are good. There's a lot of options out there just in the lights and the optics. So you can make a lot of choices. Where I think people miss the mark here is that they are in a hurry. They want to do it now, and they don't take the time to do the research, and they also want to have some confirmation bias. They want to have what their favorite influencer is running or what their best friend that they train with every week or something like that has because it works for them, so it's going to work for me, and I can just buy skill. That certainly, I will say, certainly is not the case and is not the route you should go financially speaking. Skill is developed over time. Time does have a cost to it. So what is your time worth to you? But then I would say, what's your time worth? And what are these skills and your ability to protect your home, yourself, your family? What is that all worth to you? That's something you have to figure out for yourself. And that's the value of doing research. It's the value of introspection. And then obviously comparing that data and making a choice. So I hope talking about this has been helpful for you guys because I feel like since the last 5 years or so when we had the lockdowns and the country went into a bit of a tailspin and there was suddenly a lot of concern as to safety and security of our homes, our neighborhoods, our communities, people are buying these rifles more and more. It's becoming less and less of a why do you need that and more of a how much of that do I need, which is a great discussion and I think a great change for our communities. That said, there's a lot of other considerations out there. Don't let your home fall apart. Don't have plumbing issues and all kinds of other things going on that you neglect to build a $3,500 rifle just in case the world falls apart overnight. I think there's a way to manage both sides of those conversations in a way that's going to be beneficial all the way around. I do hope this has been helpful and insightful for you guys. Make sure if this was helpful, you're hitting that subscribe and the notification bell because that obviously helps us. And we're dropping videos every week. I'm trying to bring content to you guys that's going to answer questions. It's going to solve some of those problems, or, you know, maybe just add some extra context and insight when you're figuring this all out for yourselves. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.